On this edition of The Debate, we're asking who's behind the Russia bombings and why.
Many experts here, they're saying that, well, this blast a warning to Russia and to the Russian president in the run-up to the Winter Olympics in Sochi, which the city which is located just 700 kilometers away from Volgograd. And some radical groups in Russia, they say that they will do whatever they can to prevent these games from going ahead. And
experts say in his trip to Russia, Saudi intelligence chief Bandar bin Sultan had warned Putin about the dangers threatening the country ahead of the games. Those sources say Bandar has also told Putin that Bashar al-Assad has got opponents in Chechnya, and this could lead to problems for Moscow. This was at a time when Bandar called on Moscow to reverse its policy in Syria in exchange for weapons deals with Riyadh. His offer was rejected by the Kremlin, but that was not a stop to the Saudi campaigns to support the insurgents in Iraq, Syria and elsewhere. But who are these terrorists behind the Volgograd explosions?
You're watching The Debate. Our guest, human rights activist Dr. Randy Short, with us live from Washington, and also live from London, former Russia correspondent for The Times, Mr. Christopher Walker. Very warm welcome to both of you, gentlemen. I'll put my first question to our guest, Mr. Walker in London. Now, Mr. Walker, is this, do you think, the work of fighters in the North Caucasus region of Russia because of the threats we're hearing they'd already made about the Sochi Winter Games? Who are you blaming, or who do you think is responsible?
Yes, I don't think there's any doubt that they want to stop these games and that they're responsible. So what's happened, I think, is that the terrorists have realized that Sochi is too difficult a target per se, and so they're going for softer targets, and Volgograd, which is very symbolic. It used to be called Stalingrad, the scene of the biggest battle in the Second World War the Russians were involved in.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Randy Short as well on this. Now, Dr. Short, why would the supposedly Muslim Chechen fighters want to conduct these kinds of operations, suicide bombings, the killing of innocent people? We had as part of our report there those who are saying that religion, Islam in this instance, is being used as their cover because Islam in itself, or even Christianity or other religions, do not allow for these kinds of terrorist attacks.
Suicide is haram and the Sharia. It's against the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's against the teachings of the Torah as well as the Christian Bible. All Abrahamic faiths reject suicide. This is a creation of the multinational globalist agenda against the resource-rich people who live in the Levantine areas and other oil-rich areas that Brzezinski called the Great Chessboard, or the Great Game, going back to the initial British invasion of Afghanistan. And going to Afghanistan in the 1970s, where the CIA began to create this false Islam and train these mujahideen. And President Reagan in 1985 had a national security decision directive to fund this dangerous, toxic, fake Islam to incite wars in the region, and particular to go after pro-Soviet regimes as well as to attack the former Soviet Union. So this is a continuation of the Cold War, that whereas the Russians have shown good faith and restraint since 1945, they've been attacked by the United States, the NATO bloc, and its proxies. The Chechens facilitate a war against the Soviet Union. It's another Vietnam-type conflict, not to discount the suffering that the Chechens had with Yusuf Stalin and other things that have happened. But if you look at it, Shamil Basayev, who's one of the leaders of the Chechens, is a CIA-trained terrorist. Commander Al-Khattab is a CIA-trained terrorist who are in Chechnya.
Yes.
So in Ingushetia, in Abkhazia, in all of the North Caucasus areas, this is destabilization of the Russian Federation by the United States.
Well,
and they hide behind the poor people of Chechnya who do need protection and human rights, but they shouldn't be sacrificed like the Hmong were in Laos for America to have its so-called war against communism.
As you might already know, I'll bring in a comment that's been revealed in some Russian media. Of course, we're not verifying this, but this has been brought as a revelation with Bandar bin Sultan telling Putin in his recent visit that I can give you a guarantee to protect the Winter Olympics in the city of Sochi next year. The Chechen groups that threaten the security of the Games are controlled by us, and they will not move in the Syrian territories direction without coordinating with us. And this has been causing a lot of controversies. People are saying that Saudi Arabia is actually controlling these Chechen groups and has been using them as a threat against Putin because Putin decided not to do what Bandar was asking him to do on Syria. What's your opinion on that?
It's a complicated plot, but I think there may be some element of truth in it. But it's very unlikely, I think, that a huge nation like Russia, a former superpower, is going to jump and sing because Saudi Arabia tells it to. It may be part of the mixture of the stew of the Chechenian revolt, but it's certainly not the only reason. And I think you're underrating Mr. Putin if you think that a few remarks from Prince Bandar are going to suddenly get him to reverse his whole policy. It's a little bit overstretched, but there are elements possibly of truth in it.
Dr. Short, what do you say to that? I'll just like to add that Bandar is also said to be giving promises of oil and gas deals and arms purchases and more to try and pull Putin, towards the stance that Saudi Arabia has been taking on Syria. What do you think about the level of truth to these kinds of stories?
Well, the Russians were already screwed over by the shock economics that the Friedman's school people did in the 90s. But I have to emphasize a gentleman named Graham Fuller, who's the former CIA station chief, who's the father-in-law of Ruslan Tsarnaev, who's the uncle of the two so-called Boston bombers at last year, April 15th. Ruslan Tsarnaev has the Congress of Chechen International Organizations that used to be based right here in Washington, D.C. And so, and they were being funded by the Jamestown Foundation, which is funded by the CIA. So there's a big CIA connection, CIA. And yes, there's an issue with the Chechens and their human rights with Russia. I support human rights for all people in self-determination, but it's other fingers meddling in the pie. And in this instance, it's a big middle CIA finger stirring this. And of course, who props up the Saudis? Their army can't fight. When they had to face Saddam, the United States and other countries sent soldiers to protect them. So Saudi Arabia is essentially a black middle finger of the CIA's hand.
Mr. Christopher Walker, will leave the last comments to you quickly if you can. A lot of people are saying when Saudi Arabia comes and tells Putin what to do, it's not just Saudi Arabia, it's with the knowledge of the United States. What do you say about that and about the comments by Dr. Short?
I don't think Putin would listen to either of them, frankly. He's proved himself in recent weeks to be a superior statesman over Syria and other issues, including Ukraine. He's actually showing more strength than Obama on the world stage.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we've run out of time. A big thank you there to Mr. Christopher Walker in London, former Russia correspondent for The Times, and our guest in Washington. Thank you very much, human rights activist Dr. Randy Short.
Russia likened 2 deadly suicide bombings in Volgograd to attacks by militants in the US, Syria and other countries. Many observers share the same conviction, arguing that the perpetrators of such terror attacks are the same extremists who kill innocent people in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan and other countries. Such groups only bear the name of Islam with a totally wrong understanding of the religion. They receive support from some Western and regional countries. For them, there is no difference if Shias, Sunnis or followers of other religions fall victim to their terror attacks. This, as committing suicide, is considered a huge sin in Islam, let alone killing innocent people. Russia blasts should be a wake-up call to countries that fund and back extremists who are now killing people in Syria and Russia. But these battle-experienced militants can turn their guns at their backers and destabilize them as well.
Thank you so much for staying with us here for another edition of The Debate. From me, Homa Lesgi, it's goodbye.